said this, let me get to what could be the short term work and what could be the assessments that can happen. It is important to understand where do we stand. The universities, the colleges need to have a thorough introspection on the current research standing. Universities, colleges, public institutes, assessment and preparedness on international platform becomes a prerequisite. We need to really understand what are our current partnerships of the university, college with the international institutions and what kind of alliances are these. Do we really have the right kind of infrastructure which is underutilized or not aptly utilized, which could be put into the international arena? What are the kinds of funds which are available within us in the college, in the university that we represent? Assessment of capacity utilization for international students on campus would be equally prominent. Do we really have the right kind of incubation centers in our institutions? And what is the kind of accreditation that we really have? If we are able to answer these questions on the long term perspective, the medium range perspective and short term perspective, I am sure we will have a plan for ourselves in terms of going ahead in the international arena. Now, there is a small background study to whatever is being professed in this session. There was a report recommendation which was made by a committee set by Government of Maharashtra, Higher Education in Maharashtra Preparing for Future, New Ideas and Pathways. This report typically speaks about where do we stand and where do we have to go. So, this study is specifically focusing on how do we try and foster research and socially developed and engaged research platforms which could be created in our educational institution. This could really happen if we have really high quality research. If we are able to look at globally competitive and locally relevant research initiatives. It would also mean that we need to have academic excellence keeping social development in the focus. The second important aspect that the study speaks of is the multidisciplinary nature of teaching in an educational institution or in the university. It speaks of the fact that frontline research and research on real life problems are really the need of the hour. We really need to look at comprehensive campuses and teaching institutions which are able to teach in diverse disciplines. Disciplines which are in silos will not have a space in the futuristic world of education. Research needs to focus on socio-economic development. The third aspect that the report speaks of is about the learning centric approach. It is very important to move from teacher centric to learning centric approach, where the role of the teacher needs to be redefined as learning facilitator and knowledge creator. The fourth aspect that the report speaks of is research and industry linkages, which is speaking of creation of employable citizens who are knowledgeable enough on a given subject. The fifth parameter that is discussed in this report is on the curriculum, which needs to be interdisciplinary, which needs to have core competency and which needs to have an element of vocational component. The last part of the report speaks about the industry interface, where industry is expected to invest in higher education and there could be a tax benefit which could be given by the government in higher education is proposed in the research report. The report becomes very relevant from the perspective of understanding how does India fare and how do regions fare globally. This is in the global context that the change needs to be brought in educational institutions if we really believe and if we really think that we want to get into the international linkages arena. Another paper which speaks of governance in education, the Indian challenges, written by Dr. R. A. Mashelkar, speaks about education suffering from low capability, poor governance and over-regulation with a skill that is deficit and faculty shortage. It is also suggesting that there could be a need of creation of research park with incubators to convert ideas into monetizable knowledge. Specifically, Mashelkar's report speaks about science leading to innovation. It is also speaking about affordability and access to quality education. It is speaking about how do we try and bring a balance between expansion, inclusion and excellence. It is critically stating that it is important for educational institutions to create problem solving attitude in the student, create human beings as integral part of society and also integrate the society towards it. More importantly, last but not the least, it is talking about how internationally our institutions fare really low. The suggestion given by Dr. Mashelkar in his report is that institutions need more partnerships with global institutes, businesses and societies. He is speaking about the kind of regulations that exist in France, Ireland and UK, which allows universities to create university foundations in partnership with companies. The report clearly suggests that the educational institutions, universities need to create trust-based system, create research corridors, action plans for quality of teachers, students and thus also build physical infrastructure to excite the right kind of international partners to look at our institutions. Dr. J.B. Joshi feels that it is important that we need to be culturally innovative and we really need to bring in the thought of import substitution, which has to be a part of the DNA of academic institutions. Most of our academic institutions today are located in cities, while the problems exist in smaller locations. There is a mindset of educational promoters which needs to change. We need to bring in creativity and innovation. This can really happen easily by bringing in success stories that could be created internally. Teachers need to hone their creativity. He specifically mentions about identifying the path which is essential to become problem solvers in teachers. Problems faced by the society can lead to generation of wealth which academic institutions could do. We could really look at building the local problems and providing the solutions from the educational institution. Need to look at reviewing what is happening around in the world, what kind of work is happening and how do we align to the work that is happening. It is important to understand the local issues and it is important to align to what the world is looking at and what would interest them. It is equally important to develop the culture of research which will deliver tangible results, which is really required in the initiative of internationalization. Internationalization, linkages with the outside world cannot happen in isolation. It is important to now identify the challenges in the higher education system. And how are we going to counter this in terms of linkages? Some of the key challenges that all of us today are facing is deteriorating quality of research output from colleges and from the universities. Researchers' inability to link with local problems with global relevance, because global relevance will bring the space and the connect linkages of an international faculty and a university to look at working closely with a local problem. There is also the lack of multidisciplinary research, sustainable research outputs and research with international standing. This is truly low linkage of teaching to research and innovation, which is quite prominent in the western part of the world. So, what could really be done by educational institutions? They really need to focus and prioritize research areas for the academic institution, college or the university. Hone joint research based on India's regional need. Instead of fitting into overseas or national agenda for developed nation, India needs to define research areas which are based on the local needs, which becomes very important. The world will align to you if they see that there is a valuable outcome that is coming from the research. From the research, I come to some of the other areas on capacity building and academic rigor. In this, the most important part which we feel needs to be addressed is talent acquisition. Now, what is this talent acquisition all about? Talent acquisition starts off by understanding and attracting the best academic brains to be a part of the teaching fraternity, which means the creation of the talent pool as academicians and creation of a robust process of talent acquisition as happens worldwide. Flexibility in governance to honing creativity and innovation in young talent would be a great takeaway from this session of ours. This brings me to the second part, which is talent enhancement. One is acquisition, second is enhancement. Could we look at enhancing the capabilities of people who are already with us? This could happen very simply by cross-border matching of faculty teaching standards, as we know that the boundaries are shrinking. Teaching that is globally competent and locally relevant would only find a place in times to come. That brings me to the third point, which is academic transformation. One, talent acquisition, second, talent enhancement, third is academic transformation. What is this transformation all about? The transformation that is required for the universities and teaching institutions is to change their mold of thinking from being teacher centric to learning centric, where we keep the focus on the students' learning abilities. It is essential to redefine the role of teacher as learning facilitator and knowledge creator. Curriculum and degree that are interdisciplinary with core competencies and vocational competencies need to be brought on the core forefront. The fourth point, once we have the talent, either we have acquired the talent, we have enhanced the talent, we have looked at how do we transform our academics, we need to look at how do we monitor this complete outcome. We need to look at performance based education. Unless we have a performance based education, we will not see the change that we are looking at in the academic transformation. It is essential to create capability, capacity and co-creation of the knowledge. Unless we have gone through the process as defined in this slide, I don't think we will have international partners look at our institution seriously and at an equally level playing field.